Minnesota childcare scandal and the truTG. Imagine losing your life savings overnight, accused of fraud, while the government's own mistakes spiral out of control. This isn't a movie, it's the shocking Minnesota childcare scandal. Thousands of innocent families and childcare providers were caught in a web of bureaucracy, lies, and financial chaos. Today, we uncover the truth. Minnesota's childcare system is meant to protect children and support working families. But in 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, a massive federal relief program called the Child Care Assistance Program, CCAP, was expanded. The goal? Help parents and providers survive lockdowns. Millions of dollars flowed into the system quickly, but fast money often attracts trouble. And in Minnesota, trouble found a way in. The promise of pandemic relief. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, it wasn't just businesses and hospitals that were under pressure. Childcare, the backbone of the economy, faced an unprecedented crisis. Recognizing this, the federal government stepped in, pumping billions of dollars into relief programs aimed at keeping providers afloat and helping parents continue working. In Minnesota, this translated into funding that allowed childcare centers to be paid even when children weren't attending, alongside extra grants to cover additional pandemic-related costs like sanitation, staffing, and protective equipment. At first glance, it seemed like a lifeline. Providers who had been struggling to make ends meet finally saw a way to keep their doors open. Parents, too, breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that subsidies would continue and that childcare wouldn't collapse under the weight of a global crisis. On paper, it looked like a well-thought-out solution to an impossible problem. But there was a problem lurking beneath the surface. The system was not prepared for this level of funding. Minnesota's existing infrastructure for processing and verifying payments was outdated, slow, and riddled with inefficiencies. The state's computer systems weren't designed to handle such a massive influx of money or the surge in applications and claims. Human oversight, already stretched thin, struggled to keep up, and minor errors quickly snowballed into major problems. What was meant to be a lifeline began showing cracks. Automated systems misfired, payments were delayed or flagged incorrectly, and providers faced uncertainty and frustration. Instead of relief, many experienced stress, confusion, and financial instability. This early warning sign foreshadowed the chaos that would unfold, proving that even with billions in funding, a system that isn't ready can turn help into hardship. How the system broke down. Here's the twist. The problem wasn't only fraud, but also mistakes by the state. Minnesota's Department of Human Services, DHS, struggled to separate legitimate claims from suspicious ones. Automated systems flagged thousands of payments as potentially fraudulent, but many of these were completely valid. Providers received letters accusing them of fraud. Bank accounts were frozen. Families were denied subsidy buddies. Many small, independent childcare centers faced bankruptcy. Imagine running a daycare for 20 years, only to see your account frozen over a computer glitch. The human impact. The numbers are staggering. Over 6,000 providers were accused of fraud, collectively owing hundreds of millions. Many of these accusations were later proven false, but the damage was done. One provider, for example, shared how her family used life savings to cover payroll because her account was frozen. Meanwhile, parents were scrambling to find care for their children. The scandal didn't just affect money, it shattered trust in the system meant to protect them. The real scandal: mismanagement versus fraud. The public often assumes fraud was rampant, but investigations revealed a shocking truth. Most cases were errors by the state. Outdated software, insufficient staff, and a lack of proper auditing created a perfect storm. Even the federal government criticized Minnesota for mismanagement. The state had sent hundreds of providers into financial ruin based on incomplete or inaccurate data. In other words, the scandal was as much about government failure as any actual wrongdoing. The role of truTG. Here's where it gets interesting. truTG, a tech-based auditing and tracking platform, was contracted to help detect fraud in the payment system. Their role was to analyze vast amounts of data and flag suspicious activity. However, the technology wasn't foolproof. It often flagged false positives, turning legitimate claims into allegations of theft. Providers accused of fraud faced months of legal battles, all while their families and staff suffered. truTG's algorithms were meant to be precise, but in reality, they amplified chaos. This is a key lesson. Relying solely on technology to police human systems can be dangerous. Political fallout. The scandal quickly became political. Legislators demanded accountability. State officials defended their actions, claiming they had no choice but to act on automated alerts. Meanwhile, affected providers and families organized protests and filed lawsuits. Minnesota's governor, lawmakers, and DHS all faced intense scrutiny. Committees investigated whether the state acted too quickly, too harshly, or without due process. Headlines painted a picture of a government at war with its own citizens. Stories from the ground. Let's pause for a moment and hear a real story. Maria, a single mother and licensed daycare provider, received a letter accusing her of fraud. "I couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't pay my staff," she said. "I felt like the system was punishing me for existing." Stories like hers were repeated thousands of times across Minnesota. Children missed daycare, parents lost jobs, and providers feared losing everything they had worked for. The scandal was about more than money. It was about the human cost of administrative failure. Lessons learned. What does this scandal teach us? Several key lessons stand out. 1. Automation is not infallible. Technology can amplify human errors if used without oversight. 2. Government systems need updating. Antiquated processes caused unnecessary suffering. 3. Transparency matters. When citizens are accused, they deserve clear evidence and due process. 4. Checks and balances are crucial. Independent review could have prevented widespread panic. The Minnesota scandal is a cautionary tale about how bureaucracy, technology, and urgency can collide, and who ends up paying the price. Current status. As of today, many cases are still being resolved. Some providers have been reimbursed, while others continue legal battles. DHS has pledged reforms, including better oversight and improved technology. truTG has updated algorithms and protocols to reduce false positives. Still, the scars remain. Families and providers are wary of government systems. Trust, once lost, is not easily restored. Broader implications. Beyond Minnesota, this scandal serves as a warning for other states and countries. During crises like pandemics, governments rush to provide relief. But without proper planning, the same mistakes can happen elsewhere. It raises questions about the balance between speed and accuracy, and how to protect vulnerable citizens when billions of dollars are at stake. Final thoughts. The Minnesota child care scandal is not just a story of alleged fraud. It's a story of human consequences, systemic failure, and the dangers of over-reliance on technology. Thousands of families were affected, and the lessons learned are critical for the future of public assistance programs. It reminds us that behind every number, every flagged account, there are real people, parents, children, providers, whose lives can be upended by errors. If there's one takeaway, it's this: systems meant to protect us must be as accountable and transparent as the people they serve. If you found this story eye-opening, hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives into scandals and real stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think governments should do to prevent disasters like this? Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe for more.